Que paso, my worldwide amigos and fellow geeks. My name is Jaime and Fuego.
I'm Cecil Laird.
My cohort in crime for the first inaugural film review for Enfuegotainment, my friends. This is me basically forging, my way into cyberspace and covering something besides the horrific, which I do with Cecil here for the horror show. And besides heavy metal television, which some of you might be familiar with me from. So, for our first film, 2015 is basically going to be the year of blockbuster, fantasy, sci-fi, comic awesomeness. And it's rather befitting for us to jump right in with Ultron. Avengers Age of Ultron.
All set up, boss.
Actually, he's the boss. I just pay for everything and design everything. Make everyone look cooler.
The second in the Avengers series, and I'd say probably the second big release of the summer, the first one being Furious 7, which I never got around to seeing yet, but yeah, so Age of Ultron, so go ahead, sir, lead us down the path and we'll tackle it however you'd like.
Exactly. So essentially, these film reviews are going to cover three criterias. We've got the good, the bad, and the ugly, but since, I'm Jaime and Fuego and I got to put my little spin on it, it's going to be bueno, malo, and feo. So the good, the bad, and the ugly, essentially.
What are you gonna do?
Something dramatic, I hope.
Let's go get in the fight.
Stefan, I know we disagreed a little bit about this film. I actually really enjoyed it. It wasn't a perfect film or anything, but it was fun. A little bit more critical on your side, but what did you like about it?
Okay, so starting with what I liked about it, I will say that, especially in the beginning, now we should mention we saw a 10:45 showing, and both of us were a little bit on the tired side by the end of it.
It's like, what, 2.5 hours almost?
Yeah, exactly. So take my criticisms with a little hint of salt, because there was a little bit of some doziness going on, but I can't really blame the movie. What I know is that getting back to what I liked about it was near the beginning, they really nailed sort of the feel and the tone of the first movie.
Oh yeah, like jumps right into a badass action scene.
Yeah,
right?
a good action scene where actually that's where you get to see the shot of all the Avengers that you see in the trailer, and they try and reenact the tracking shot that goes from Avenger to Avenger, but
each get their own little action spot to showcase their powers.
Right. So that was okay though. The problem is they didn't do that again later on, but we'll get into that in a minute. But what I did like was the banter that they had. Yeah. The banter between the characters continues. It continues to be phenomenal. Joss Whedon is clearly he knows what he's doing when it comes to ensemble pieces between Buffy, Angel, Dollhouse, Firefly, obviously, Avengers,
he has endeared himself to geeks everywhere.
Yeah,
so
Astonishing X-Men was another one. He wrote the Astonishing X-Men book for a while. That was another ensemble that was just sang because of his dialogue. So,
and they did a visual comic of that, or like a
they did a motion comic that was on Netflix for a while. It's not any longer, but it's good
stuff. Seek it out though.
Yeah, definitely worth it. So yeah, the banter, the character interactions were a lot of fun, and the action scenes were good to watch. They were
nice,
enjoyable,
mindless fun.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what I would say would narrow down the good. How about for you? What did you like?
I actually liked a few of the things that some people disliked. I liked the love story between Scarlett Johansson's character. Oh goodness, I'm having a brain fart here. Black Widow, correct? Yeah.
Now, are we spoiling?
Maybe we'll give like a little disclaimer before we get into full-on spoiler territory, but it's been in some of the synopsises that there's kind of a thing going on between the two of them, and we won't elaborate too much on it, but she can kind of soothe his soul, so to speak, is a good way of describing it. And I know a lot of people also didn't like more Hawkeye, and the fact that we got to see his home life a little bit without spoiling too much, and see what he does when he's not out, helping out S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever. And actually, I thought his character was so hollow and boring in the first one. It was like, why the hell is this guy here? But they gave more of a three-dimensional take on him, which I liked. So good action sequences, fun banter. Some of the pacing actually worked for me, and for others it didn't. But now, without getting too much into spoiler territory, we're gonna go from bueno to malo, so from the good to the bad. And there was definitely some bad compared to the initial, first Avengers installment. So since I know you're a little bit more critical of it, take it away. Sir.
Okay. Now, piggybacking on your point for what you liked, the Hawkeye story, I actually was not a fan of that story because it stuck out like such a sore thumb. Like it was a contrast. I mean, he was the only one. They made it seem like he was the only one with skin in the game. Mm-hmm. Like there was no one else with anyone else that was going to be affected. It was all, Thor was only going to be affected by Thor because Jane had been moved away. And then Peggy he's not with Peggy, and the Falcon is with Shield or whatever. So he's fine. So no skin in the game there. Yeah. Black Widow, she says that she's a loner. Banner's obviously a loner, so no skin in the game by that.
True.
So it feels so lopsided when the only person that you're talking about their family is Hawkeye. Yeah. And it's just and even Pepper is absent, in this one. She was in the first
once. And
she was in the first Avengers, but not in this one. So that
and yet they still had War Machine make his little appearance.
Yeah. But that's because they had to do something towards the end, leading into future movies. So that's why they had the actual heroes in it, but not like the other people. So that's what I'm saying. Focusing on Hawkeye's family and no one else's was just weird.
Did it feel forced to you?
It felt a little forced, because they were like trying so hard to make up for him being a non-character in the first one.
It's true, and everybody knew it. They're just like, why is this?
Exactly.
Green Arrow wannabe. What the hell is his thing?
The other thing I should say, I want to say about it, and I'm going to backtrack to the Bueno for a second, because Ultron, Ultron was really cool. The way he looked was really amazing.
Oh, he looked sick.
He looked amazing.
The effects were tremendous.
Yeah, well, for a lot of it, they were. Yeah, but the bad part of that, and the reason I bring that up, is because they made Ultron too human. Like he had little asides and little jokes for characters, and like. He's like, oh, for God's sake, at one point. And there's no reason a machine would ever say, oh, for God's sake. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know. I get they're trying to do something different. And he was compelling to watch. Yeah. He was interesting to watch.
Oh, yeah. James Spader, great voice work, man. I mean, I was wondering how much life he was going to bring to the character, and he brought a lot.
He did, but that's what humanized him. Yeah, and that's what made him less menacing and less scary.
Especially for a film that was trying to be so much darker than the first one, which for me was just straight up summer popcorn fun.
Right.
This one was like, okay, we're going to combat DC and go a little bit darker and, try to forge our way there. So.
And then the other bad thing I will say is that it still boils down to the Avengers versus a ton of robots. And we saw Iron Man versus a ton of robots in Iron Man 2. Yeah. And it's like we just didn't need to see a whole bunch more robots getting beat on.
And that's a good segue into some of the malo, some of the bad for me was that, they didn't really adhere to a lot of continuity stuff, I mean, why is Iron Man fighting crime again when he said he wasn't going to do that after Iron Man 3? And also, like, they didn't explain any of this S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff, because hadn't S.H.I.E.L.D., dissolved. I know you watched the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show, and I do not. So, did it tie in with that?
No, I mean, they just kind of avoided the whole thing. Like, right now, S.H.I.E.L.D. is barely S.H.I.E.L.D. on the show. No. But in this one, it seems like they made it feel like S.H.I.E.L.D. was all in it. Yeah, no.
Yeah, no Coulson.
All the Avengers still think Coulson's dead. So again, that was some of the weird stuff.
Up with the Joss continuity, and that's actually a good segue for Zefeo, the Ugly. Joss Whedon doesn't seem too happy in some of the post-press that he's doing about the film. He's saying how frustrated he was with trying to keep up with continuity of all these solo films and a TV show and all this stuff. And I know lots of people were hoping he was going to be there for Infinity War. The Russo brothers are taking over now, and so it's kind of like, is it a bitter divorce? It looks like it's getting kind of ugly to me. So
yeah, but and then the ugly in the movie for me was that
Quicksilver.
Well, Quicksilver wasn't a very deep character. He was definitely done better in the X-Men movie, but
I think Days of Future Past set the bar so high.
Yeah,
and at least for me, that film was one of the best superhero flicks I've seen in ages. I absolutely loved it.
But what I was actually going to say was that I didn't like. The effects were good, but they looked rushed in a couple of spots compared to the last one. Some of the characters were moving just too fast, and like they were throwing things too fast. And when that happens, you really it pulls me out of it, because I'm like, oh, that's so obviously CG. Yeah. Like they've gotten really good at masking it, but there was actually a number of times I remember thinking ooh, there's another one. Ooh, there's another one. Where things were just moving too fast that it's just too clearly a digital replacement.
And wasn't that like a big sore thumb in lots of these, new action movies, that frenetic editing, for those different spots where you can see.
Well, it wasn't that I couldn't tell what was going on or anything, because that's my problem with those usually is the shaky camera, and they're trying to make it look like everything's moving too fast.
So this almost take you out of the escapism aspect a little bit?
Yeah, because I'm like, that's not moving like it would in real life. It's too fast. Yeah. So that pulls me out of it. It doesn't matter. The first one was a comic book, and I didn't have those issues. You know?
So, and then it just didn't have the same fun as much as the original. I know they were going for that more serious tone, but...
but they didn't even achieve, like, they didn't fully commit one way or the other. Yeah. Like, they didn't fully commit to a dark tone or anything like that. Like, it
was kind of knee-jerk in how it shifted around. Yeah. And that's another ugly thing, is that the pacing was very strange for a 2.5-hour movie, which, the last Avengers was about the same length of time, but yet it flowed well, and it didn't feel like it was 2.5 hours. Whereas this one... God, I can only imagine that 3+ hour cut that Joss Whedon's supposed to put on the home release. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of ugly to me. But, regardless, we highly recommend at least watching the film and, make up your own mind. That's the cool thing about just, films in general, is that we all have different opinions. And, it's fun to voice them and it's fun to discuss them. So I guess we will wrap things up from there. And I will extend a grande gracias to all of you peeps, all of my fellow geeks who tuned into this and... are fans of how righteous this 2015 is going to be. So much on our plates, from Mad Max to Star Wars to Jurassic World. Can't forget that. So Ant-Man, the trailer for that looked super sick.
The trailer looks fun for that as well.
So lots of awesome stuff we're going to be covering in the future. And yes, we are so very excited for it. So I've been Jaime Enfuego. Gracias.
I've been Cecil Laird.
And we look forward to seeing you soon, amigos. Adios.